Hi everyone, and welcome to today, where we're going to be looking at the law of detachment and the law of syllogism. So, just to start, let's take a look back at some of these old if-then formats, just to kind of get us nice and warmed up for today. So, like usual, we're going to rewrite them out, and then we're going to underline what's the hypothesis, and then what is the conclusion. So, first statement we have here is panda bears like bamboo. That's great to hear. So let's write an if-then statement for this. For me, I say it's if it's a panda bear, then it likes bamboo. Short and sweet. So what here is our hypothesis? Well, it's talking about this panda bear. So it's the panda bear. Remember not to underline or circle the if or the n. And so what about this panda bear? Well, she likes bamboo. All right. Second one. The homecoming queen gets to wear a tiara. Lucky queen her. So if you're the homecoming queen, then you get to wear a tiara. Lucky her. I want a tiara. Awesome. So what is our hypothesis here? Well, it's talking about if you're the homecoming queen. Then the conclusion from that is if you are homecoming queen, then you get to wear the tiara. Lastly, number 3. Here we go. Finish up this warm-up. We have the sailor went on the submarine. Well, the way I put this, if you are a sailor, then you get to go on a submarine. Your hypothesis should be you're a sailor, and your conclusion should be you get to go on a submarine. Maybe it's a yellow one. I don't know if you'll get that joke, but oh well, it's in there. So that's a good start. That's a good warm-up. It's a good thing to start out with because everything we're going to be doing here is going to be still kind of looking at that if-then format. We're just going to change some things around a little bit depending on if we're looking at the law of detachment or the law of syllogism. And that's what we're going to be looking at next. Just going to kind of get rid of this so we can make it a little bit easier and neater to read going down. So we have right here the law of detachment and the law of syllogism are two law of logics that use facts, definitions, and accepted properties to make logical arguments. And whether or not you believe it, you do that on a daily basis. This is what you do. Logic is the way to make an argument and how to make a valid argument at that. Now, what is the law of detachment? Well, recently you've looked at if P, then Q. And we're going to kind of still continue on with that same pattern here. Actually, it's the first pattern that we're going to be looking at. So I got 3 different things here that are going to be for the law of detachment. The number 1 is if P, which we're going to represent as an underline, then Q, which we're going to kind of represent here as being maybe a type of squiggly line like that, just to kind of separate the 2 different parts. Then what's going to happen here for a law of detachment here is your P is going to be kind of restated, but it's going to have a little bit of a new subject matter to it. And then your third thing is then to take that P and that new aspect of it and to write a new Q based on the information that you have. Sounds a little bit weird. Let's get some examples and it hopefully should make a lot better sense. So here's your first example. if you are late to class, then you will get a detention. All right, let's treat this first one just like a normal problem that we've been dealing with. We're going to underline what is our hypothesis, and that's going to be you are late for class. That's your hypothesis. Your conclusion is going to be you will then get a detention. It's the cause and effect. If you're late to class, ultimately you're going to get a detention. So that's what we have kind of back right here, that first part, if P, then Q. Now, take a look at number 2. We're kind of reinstating the P with just a new tidbit of information here. And it says, Jake, that is your new information. And what happened to Jake? Well, he was late to class. Notice how those two combine together. So now our job is to write out a new Q using Jake. So here we go. Again, if you are late for class, then you will get detention. Jake was late to class. So what do you think is going to happen to Jake? Well, then Jake, because he was late to class, will get a detention. And that is kind of restating the Q portion of this with the new bit of information that we got from the previous statement, or in respect to that, we're talking about good old Jake. Now, number 2. I'm going to have you guys try that one on your own, and that's going to be one that we're going to look at when you come back into class. So give that guy right there a shot. And again, just try your best. You guys have done a really, really nice job with these if-then statements, so hopefully this is not too much for you. I know you can do it, though. Now, moving down, the law of syllogism here. It's kind of like the last one, as far as you're going to have some new steps to it. So, like normal, the number 1 is always going to really be your traditional if P, again, we're going to mark this as an underline, then Q statement. Again, just normal, very normal here. Again, even off to the side, we're talking if P, then Q. However, the step 2 is going to be, well, if Q, or again, our squiggly line, then we're going to actually introduce something new, or the R. So if if Q, then R, and that R we're going to represent as maybe like this curly Q looking line. And therefore, again, we're going to write here, if Q, then R, and then last but not least, we're going to tie the original and the newest information together. Meaning we're going to have the original conclusion. So if P, then ultimately what's going to happen is our curly Q guy now here, or R. So your final statement, the one that you're going to end up writing down, is going to be then if P, then R. So let's give this a try here. We got a few of them. Give them a whirl. So number 1 here. If you can read music, then you can play the guitar. Okay. Here's our hypothesis, or our P. You can read music. And your conclusion, you can play the guitar. So here's P again. Here's Q. Well, here's the thing. We now have if you can play the guitar. Notice how it's the exact same thing here as the previous Q. This Q and this Q, or the conclusions, are both the same. Now this conclusion is turned into the hypothesis, and now you'll have the new conclusion is then squiggly line, you keep the beat, or R. So now our goal here is to then take the original P and make an if-then statement with P and then R. So ultimately what's going to happen here is if you can read music, then ultimately you can keep a beat. And notice how we tie the P in here to our new hypothesis, and we put our R, or our new conclusion, in the same, and how these two then flow together. Again, just like normal, once you give this second one, that number 2 there, a shot on your own. Give it your best. Okay, again, follow the patterns and you should be totally fine. Okay, here, we're almost done. This last part should be pretty easy. Go through a couple and then I'll let you do a couple on your own. All right, so here's what we got. We want to know, and it says, determine whether the statement follows the law of detachment, the law of syllogism, or neither. This might be something that might require you to kind of go back and use your notes. So this would be really good for you to kind of reread things and see just kind of what works here. So number 1, part A says, if it rains, then practice will be canceled. So we have here, here's a P, and there's our Q. Practice will be canceled. It rained on Tuesday. Well, kind of fits like what we had here for our original statement. So it's a P again. However, what's kind of the new part to this? Tuesday. So just be cautious about that Tuesday part, because you should maybe use it later on, or for part C, if we're talking about one of these two aspects. So let's take a look at it now. It says practice was canceled on Tuesday. Well, that statement is a lot like what you had up here for your Q, or that practice will be canceled. You just added one more aspect, or a new subject portion of it that you got from part B. This here perfectly fits the description of the law of detachment. Awesome. Now, number 2. Let's give that guy here a shot. It says, if Nick takes driver's ed, then he can get his license. If P, then Q. Okay, if Nick gets his license, okay, that fit our last Q, then he will buy a truck. Well, that's new than the original hypothesis we have, and it's something that we haven't seen before, so that gets curly Q. That's like basically saying it's if Q, then R. Okay, so our last part is if Nick takes driver's ed, which basically matches the exact same thing that we had up top here for our P, or our hypothesis, then he will buy a truck. Well, that, again, matches with our R statement here, or our curly Q. So our last statement here is if P, then R. There's only one law that we have here that works with this, and that's your law of syllogism. Number 3 then. It says, if Pam hits a bullseye, she will be the darts champion. Pam is the darts champion. Pam hits a bullseye. All right, well, let's see. Pam hits a bullseye. That's your P. She will be the darts champion. Well, it's kind of missing a then, but let's just say, okay, it's a kind of a Q. And then B says Pam is the darts champion. Okay, so that's Q. And then C, Pam hits a bullseye, going back to P. This is not really fitting anything that we've kind of done. So therefore, it's neither. Does not fit with any of the two laws that we checked out. Okay, last thing here is we got number 4. Kind of like the others, I want you to give those a try on your own. See how those go. And if you have any questions about this, please feel free to bring this up to Mrs. Storvik and myself if you have any more further questions. All right, nice job today, guys. We'll see you back in class tomorrow. Hopefully everything went well. Have a good day. Bye-bye.